me a yes if the audio good. Give me a no if the audio a echo. So type yes if the audio good. Type no if the audio a echo. Alright, so we finally got this stuff figured out. We live and we learn. We have to test and test and test because we don't have no mentor on the battlefield, you know. We are do this thing by ourselves out here. You know what I mean? Yes, man. So, last time, tried streaming this stuff, and my comments were just all over the place because of the audio problem. So, this time, good. I see the comment. Good. Audio is good. Awesome. Yes, man. So this time, audio working properly and everything. So we're gonna take the opportunity to go over tablet 1 of the Lost Book of Enki. Without further ado, we already spent almost half an hour testing audio, make sure this good, make sure that good, yada yada. So I may just have to chop this video up and re-upload it. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. In the comments if you're here.
Synopsis of the first tablet. Lamentation over the desolation of Sumer. How the gods fled their cities as the nuclear cloud spread. The debates in the council of the gods.
Drop a yes in the comments if you're hearing the audio from the screen share. Drop a yes in the comments if you're hearing the audio from the screen share.
Synopsis of the first tablet. Lamentation over the desolation of Sumer. How the gods fled their cities as the nuclear cloud spread. The debates in the council of the gods. The fateful decision to unleash the weapons of terror. The origin of the gods and the awesome weapons on Nibiru. Nibiru's north-south wars, unification and dynastic rules. Nibiru's place in the solar system. A dwindling atmosphere causes climate changes. Efforts to obtain gold to shield the atmosphere fail. Alelu, a usurper, uses nuclear weapons to stir volcanic gases. Anu, a dynastic heir, deposes Alelu. Alelu steals a spacecraft and escapes from Nibiru.
So that's the basic synopsis of the first tablet. And guys, in case you have no idea, in case you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, these have been translated from ancient tablets found in Sumer. Okay. It gives the entire story. While we go through, you're going to see the similarities with the stories from the Bible. But it gives the entire thing in detail from a first-person perspective. From before Genesis all the way through. So the synopsis, this is the first tablet of the list. The synopsis, as it states, the names you might not be familiar with as yet, but Anu, Alalu, Enki, Enlil, Nibiru. Write that down. Alelu, Anu, Enki, Enlil, Nibiru. Very important. You're going to hear a lot of that.
The words of the Lord Enki, firstborn son of Anu, who reigns on Nibiru. With heavy spirit I utter laments, laments that are bitter fill my heart. How smitten is the land, its people delivered to the evil wind, its stables abandoned, its sheepfolds emptied. How smitten are the cities, their people piled up as dead corpses, afflicted by the evil wind. How smitten are the fields, their vegetation withered, touched by the evil wind. How smitten are the rivers, nothing swims anymore, pure sparkling waters turned into poison. Of its black-headed people, Sumer is emptied. Gone is all life. Of its cattle and sheep, Sumer is emptied. Silent is the hum of churning milk.
And guys, I will be pausing throughout here and there just to make commentary whenever I find it necessary. So thanks for the support.
In its glorious cities only the wind howls, death is the only smell. The temples whose heads to heaven arose by their gods have been abandoned. Of lordship and kingship command there is none. Scepter and tiara are gone. On the banks of the two great rivers, once lush and life-giving, only weeds grow. No one treads the highways, no one seeks out the roads. Flourishing Sumer is like an abandoned desert. How smitten is the land, home of the gods and men. On that land a calamity fell, one unknown to man. A calamity that mankind had never seen before, one that could not be withstood. On all the lands from west to east, a disruptive hand of terror was placed. The gods in their cities were helpless as men. An evil wind, a storm born in a distant plain, a great calamity wrought in its path. A death-dealing wind born in the west, its way to the east has made, its course set by fate. A storm devouring as the deluge, by wind and not by water, a destroyer, by poisoned air, not tidal waves overwhelming. By fate, not destiny, was it engendered. The great gods, in their council, the great calamity had caused.
So we're not going to skip over that part. By fate, not destiny, was it engendered. The great gods, lowercase g, with the S, in other words, the Elohim, in their council, they caused it. Bruh. They caused whatever calamity is being described here. That's what it's saying, right? By fate, not destiny, was it engendered. The great gods, in their council, the great calamity had caused. Let's continue.
Enlil gods, in their council, the great calamity had caused. By Enlil and Ninharzag, it was permitted. I alone for a halt was beseeching.
And as we go along, we're going to figure out what great calamity they're talking about. So just stay tuned, guys.
Day and night to accept what the heavens decree, I argued, to no avail. Nine Urda, Enlil's warrior son, and Nergal, my very own son, poisoned weapons in the great plain, then unleashed. That an evil wind shall follow the brilliance we knew not. They now cry in agony. That the death-dealing storm born in the west its course to the east shall make, who could foretell? The gods now but bemoan. In their holy cities the gods stood disbelieving as the evil wind toward Sumer made its way.
So, even these gods, so-called gods, can't help themselves because of this, whatever they created. And we're going to figure out what this whole evil wind is that they're talking about. Just listen carefully, pay attention. Do not think anything superstitious. Because this is all science, bro. It's nothing to do with anything spiritual or anything outside of the normal. This is all temporal. Let's put it that way. This is all happening in the flesh. So let's continue.
One after another the gods fled their cities, their temples abandoned to the wind. In my city, Eridu, as the poison cloud approached, I could do nothing to stop it. Escaped to the open steppe to the people I gave instructions. With Ninki, my spouse, the city I abandoned. In his city, Nibiru, place of the bond, heaven, earth, Enlil could do nothing to stop it.
All right.
The evil wind against Nibiru was onrushing. In his celestial boat, Enlil and his spouse hurriedly took off. In Sumer's city of kingship, Nanar to his father Enlil for help cried. In the place of the temple that to heaven in 7 steps rises, Nanar, the hand of fate, refused to heed. My father, who begot me, great God, who to had granted kingship, turn the evil wind away, Nanar pleaded.
So Nanar calling out, Nanar, a supposed God, calling out to him, Father, oh God of whatever, save me. All right, let's continue.
Great God, who decrees the fates, let and its people be spared, your praises to continue, Nanar appealed. Enlil answered his son Nanar, noble son, your wondrous city kingship was granted. Eternal reign it was not granted.
Enlil answered his son Nanar and said, you man, your beautiful city was granted kingship, but it was not granted eternal reign. I'm sorry, I can't help. Let's continue. We're going to figure out what this evil wind, quote unquote, evil wind is that they're talking about. To me, when I went through it, my analysis is this was a nuclear fallout. And the more it goes into the description, you're going to figure it out.
Granted. Take hold of your spouse Ningal, flee the city, even I who decrees fates, its destiny I cannot bend. Thus did Enlil my brother speak, alas, alas, not a destiny it was. A calamity no greater since the deluge gods and earthlings had befallen, alas, not a destiny it was. The great deluge was destined to happen, the great calamity of the death-dealing storm was not. By the breach of a vow, by a council decision it was caused, by weapons of terror was it created.
Bricks. By the breach of a vow, by a council decision, it was caused. By weapons of terror, it was created. They're talking about the evil wind, the whole calamity that this guy run into his father saying, oh, Father, please help me, God of whatever, yada yada. Weapons of what? Terror. In today's language, we call that what? Weapons of mass destruction. Right? Right? Alright, let's continue.
By a council decision it was caused, by weapons of terror was it created. By a decision, not destiny, were the poisoned weapons unleashed.
By a decision, not destiny, were the poisoned weapons unleashed. By deliberation was the lot cast. So basically they hold a meeting and they vote and decide, look, yeah man, let's go ahead and unleash these weapons, bro. Think about it. Let's continue.
By deliberation was the lot cast. Against Marduk, my firstborn, did the 2 sons destruction direct.
And by the way, guys, if you like this kind of content, or you know somebody who is interested in this kind of content, feel free to share the link, because we're going to be doing this week over week. I'll be bringing you more and more information as I go along on my journey and learn this stuff. I'll be bringing the information so we can discuss and, doing it live. So we can discuss and, everyone can come to an educated decision. We can make an informed decision regarding whatever religions or religious beliefs we want to hold on to. So my thing is not to convince anybody to do anything. My thing is not to preach anything to anybody. I'm only here to present the information as I find it. Of course, I'll give my commentary. It's my humble opinion, right? But that's just about it.
Vengeance was in their hearts. Ascendancy is not Marduk's to grasp. Enlil's firstborn shouted, "With weapons I shall oppose him," Ninurta said. Of people he raised an army, Babili as earth's navel to declare. Nergal, Marduk's brother, so shouted.
Babili sounds a lot like Babylon, right?
In the council of the great gods, words of venom were spread.
So they're saying, yo, establish Babylon as the capital. Bruh, think about it.
Day and night I raised my opposing voice. Peace I counseled, deploring haste. For the second time the people had raised his heavenly image. Why does opposing continue? I asked in pleading. Have all the instruments been checked?
According to the predictions in the stars, according to how the stars align, it's Marduk's time to reign. Why are we waging war?
Ningishzida, my very son, other signs of heaven cited. His heart, I knew, Marduk's injustice to him could not forgive. Nanar, to Enlil on earth born, was unrelenting too. Marduk, my temple in the north city, his own abode made. So he said. Ishkur, Enlil's youngest, punishment demanded in my lands to whore after him the people he made.
So Ishkur get up with his head chipped, being like, yo, this guy needs to be punished because he has the people in my land whoring after him.
He said. Utu, son of Nanar, at Marduk's son Nabu, his wrath directed, the place of the celestial chariots he tried to seize. Inanna, twin of Utu, was furious of all. The punishment of Marduk for the killing of her beloved Dumuzi she still demanded. Ninharzag, mother of gods and men, her gaze diverted. Why is not Marduk here? She only said. Gibel, my own son, with gloom replied, Marduk has all entreaties put aside. By the signs of heaven his supremacy he claims. Only with weapons will Marduk be stopped. Ninurta, Enlil's firstborn, shouted.
So Ninurta jump up. Yo, if we don't shoot this guy, let me don't say that. Ninurta jump up and be like, yo, if we don't use some form of weapons against this guy, nothing is gonna stop him.
Utu, about protecting the place of the celestial chariots, was concerned. In Marduk's hands it must not fall. So,
and think about it, the place of the celestial chariots. I wonder what that could mean. Celestial means sky, right? Or heavenly. Chariot is something that you ride in. Okay, are we putting the pieces together here? Da-da-dum, da-da-dum.
So he said. Nergal, lord of the lower domain, ferociously was demanding, let the olden weapons of terror for obliteration be used. At my own son I gazed in disbelief.
Wait, can't skip over that part. Let what? Let the olden weapons of terror for obliteration be used. Weapons of mass destruction, right? Ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum.
For obliteration be used. At my own son I gazed in disbelief, for brother against brother the terror weapons have been forsworn. Instead of consent, there was silence. In the silence, Enlil opened his mouth. Punishment there must be. Like birds without wings, the evildoers shall be. Marduk and Nabu, us of heritage are depriving. Let them of the place of the celestial chariots be deprived.
Ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum. Thanks for the follow, guys. Thanks for
Let
the
the
likes.
place
Thanks
be
for the
scorched
comments.
to oblivion, Ninerta shouted. The one who scorches, let me be.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
The celestial chariots be deprived. Let the place be scorched to oblivion, Ninerta shouted. The one who scorches, let me be.
Let the place be scorched to oblivion. Scorched. Scorched to oblivion. Again, weapons of mass destruction, right? Ta-da-dum. Ta-da-dum.
Excited, Nergal stood up and shouted, let the evildoers' cities also be upheavaled. The sinning cities let me obliterate. Let the annihilator my name thereafter be.
Nergal, jump up. I'll be the annihilator. I'll go drop that bomb. I'll be the one known to have been the one who killed these assholes. I need to adjust my lighting. Anyways.
The earthlings by us created must not be harmed. The righteous with the sinners must not be perished, I forcefully said. Ninharzag, my creating helpmate, was consenting.
Wait a minute. The earthlings? By who? The earthlings, by us created, must not be harmed. The righteous with the sinners must not be perished, I forcefully said. Ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum.
The matter is between the gods alone to settle. The people must not be harmed. Anu, from the celestial abode to the discussions, was giving much heed. Anu, who determines fates, from his celestial abode his voice made heard. Let the weapons of terror be this once used. Let the place of the rocket ships be obliterated. Let the people be spared.
Let the place of the what be what? Wait a minute. I thought they didn't have rocket ships back then. Am I hearing this right? Am I not hearing this right? Let me see if I see the text. Anu, from the celestial abode to the discussion, was giving much heed, meaning he sitting there listening on whatever wireless devices or whatever. Anu, who determines fates from his celestial abode, which means he's not here on earth in the discussion, from his celestial abode, wherever he lives, his voice made heard. Ha! Let the weapons of terror this once be used. Let the place of the rocket ships be obliterated. Let the people be spared. Let Ninerta the scorcher be. Let Nergal be the annihilator. Ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum. I thought they didn't have rocket ships back then, though.
Let Ninerta the scorcher be. Let Nergal be the annihilator. So did Enlil the decision announce. To them a secret of the gods I shall reveal. The hiding place of the terror weapons to them I shall disclose. The two sons, one mine, one his.
Wait a minute. To them, a secret of the gods I shall reveal. The hiding place of the terror weapons. It's even hard to say. The hiding place of the terror weapons to them I shall disclose. Again, I'm still thinking weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons to them I shall disclose. The 2 sons, one mine, one his, to his inner chamber Enlil summoned. Nergal, as he went by me, his gaze averted. Alas, I cried out without words, brother has turned against brother. Are the prior times fated to repeat? A secret from the olden times to them Enlil was revealing, the weapons of terror to their hands entrusting. Clad with terror, with a brilliance they are unleashed. All they touch to a dust heap they turn. For my brother against brother on earth they were.
Wait a minute. Now here's a very short, very succinct description of these weapons of terror. Let's go again.
Clad with terror, with a brilliance they are unleashed. All they touch to a dust heap they turn.
Everything them touch turn to dust. Again, I'm still thinking weapons of mass destruction, right? Because when it's unleashed, bright light. I keep hitting this thing. When it's unleashed, bright light, right? And everything it touched turned to dust, right?
For my brother against brother on earth they were forsworn, neither region to affect. Now the oath was undone, like a broken jar in useless pieces. The 2 sons, full of glee, with quickened step from Enlil's chamber emerged, for the weapons departing. The other gods turned back to their cities. None of his own calamity had a foreboding. Now this is the account of the prior times, and of the weapons of terror. Before the prior times was the beginning. After the prior times were the olden times. In the olden times the gods came to earth and created the earthlings.
Who came to earth and did what? So let's run that one more time. Before the prior times was the beginning. After the prior times were the olden times. So they're basically breaking it out into 3 different slits of time here, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like 3 different ages, like how we had the Ice Age and the what do you call it, the Triassic and the Jurassic and all those Asic periods that they had back then. So this is breaking it out into three different periods. The beginning, the prior times, then the olden times. So let's hear their story about this whole stuff.
In the prior times, none of the gods was on the earth, nor were the earthlings yet fashioned. In the prior times, the abode of the gods was on their own planet. Nibiru is its name.
Wait a minute. In the olden times, the gods came to earth and created the earthlings. Before that was the prior times. None of them were on earth, nor were the earthlings yet fashioned. In the prior times, these gods lived on their own planet named Nibiru. It's a really great planet. Kind of reddish radiance. Has an elongated all right, let's listen.
A great planet,
Okay.
reddish in radiance, around the sun an elongated circuit Nibiru makes. For a time in the cold is Nibiru engulfed, for part of its circuit by the sun strongly is it heated.
So in other words, Nibiru's orbit is elongated. For a part of its orbit, it's close to the sun. And then for another part of its orbit, it's far from the sun. So when it's close to the sun, it's hot. When it's far from the sun, it's cold.
A thick atmosphere Nibiru envelops, by volcanic eruptions constantly fed. All manner of life this atmosphere sustains. Without it, there will be only perishing. In the cold period, the inner heat of Nibiru it keeps about the planet, like a warm coat that is constantly renewed.
So, Nibiru has a thick atmosphere fed by volcanic activity. They got all manner of life sustained on the planet. In the cold periods, the heat from the volcanic activities keeps it warm and constantly renews their atmosphere. And in the hot period, that thick atmosphere keeps them from burning to death. Okay, it sounds pretty scientifically accurate if you ask me.
In the hot period, it shields Nibiru from the sun's scorching rays. In its midst rains it holds and releases to lakes and streams giving rise. Lush vegetation our atmosphere feeds and protects. All manner of life in the waters and on the land to sprout it caused. After eons of time our own species sprouted, by our own essence an internal seed to procreate.
So, doesn't this sound like a theory of evolution? The same theory of evolution that we have here and believe in so much with all our hearts.
As our numbers grew, to many regions of Nibiru our ancestors spread. Some tilled the land, some four-legged creatures shepherded, some lived on the mountains, some in the valleys their home made. Rivalries occurred, encroachments happened, clashes occurred, sticks became weapons.
Sounds a lot similar, doesn't it? Hunter-gatherer. Oh yeah, we were hunter-gatherer and blah blah. Come on. Bruh. Am I stupid? Am I stupid for thinking that this exact story that I'm reading here in the Lost Book of Enki, right, is the same exact thing that we're taught as a part of our curriculum in our schools and colleges? Isn't it the same thing that we just read? Bruh. The same theory of evolution.
Encroachments happened, clashes occurred, sticks became weapons. Clans gathered into tribes, then two great nations each other faced. The nation of the north against the nation of the south took up arms. What was held by hand to thrusting missiles was turned, weapons of thunder and brilliance increased the terror. As a war long and fierce engulfed the planet.
They were fighting north against south. On our planet, it's now east against west, right? Am I stupid for contrasting all this stuff? Tell me in the chat if I'm stupid for contrasting all this stuff, bro.
For many circuits, desolation reigned the land. All life was diminished. Then a truce was declared, then peacemaking was conducted. Let the nations be united, the emissaries said to one another.
And by the way, a circuit is basically one orbit of their planet around the sun. That's what they call a circuit.
Let there be one throne on Nibiru, one king to reign over all. Let a leader from north or from south by lot be chosen, one king supreme to be.
Now we see democracy evolving here, right?
If he be from north, let south choose a female to be his spouse as equal queen to reign alongside. If by lot a south male be chosen, let the north's female be his spouse. Husband and wife let them be, as one flesh to become. Let their firstborn son be the successor. Let a unified dynasty thus be formed, unity on Nibiru forever to establish. In the midst of the ruins, peace was started. North and south by marriage were united. The royal throne into one flesh combined, an unbroken line of kingship established. The first king after peace was made, a warrior of the north he was, a mighty commander. By lots, true and fair, was he chosen. His decrees in unity were accepted. For his abode he built a splendid city, Agade, unity meaning was its name. For his reign a royal title he was granted. On it was. The celestial one was its meaning.
All right. So now we have the first king of Nibiru emerging from the story. An was his title, meaning celestial one.
With strong arm order in the lands he re-established, laws and regulations he decreed. Governors for each land he appointed. Restoration and reclamation was their foremost task. Of him in the royal annals thus it was recorded. On the lands unified, peace on Nibiru he restored. He built a new city, the canals he repaired, food to the people he provided. There was an abundance in the lands. For his spouse, the south, a maiden had chosen. For both love and warring she was noted. Antu was her royal title. The leader who is An's spouse, the given name cleverly did mean. She bore An 3 sons and no daughters. The firstborn son was by her named Enki. By An a solid foundation was its meaning. Alone.
So An, firstborn son Enki.
On the throne he was seated. A spouse to choose was twice postponed. In his reign, concubines were brought into the palace. A son to him was not born.
So Enki, the second king, or king in line, what do we call prince in waiting, put off his marriage twice, is what it's saying.
The dynasty
affairs with concubines, not getting any sons. So, yeah, I guess.
Into the palace. A son to him was not born.
Right.
The dynasty thus begun was by the death of Enki disrupted. On the foundation no offspring followed.
So Enki did not have a son to take his place.
The middle son, though not the firstborn, the legal heir was pronounced. From his youth, one of the 3 brothers, Ib, by his mother was lovingly called. The one in the middle his name did mean. By the royal annals, Anib he is named. In kingship celestial, by generations, the one who is An's son, the name signified. He followed his father on Nibiru's throne. By count, he was the 3rd to reign. The daughter of his younger brother he chose to be his spouse. Ninib, she was called the Lady of Ib. A son to Anib by Ninib was born. The successor on the throne he was, the 4th by the count of the kings. By the royal name and Shargal, he wished himself to be known. An's prince, who is greatest of princes, was the meaning. His spouse, a half-sister, Kishagul, was equally named. Knowledge and understanding were his chief ambition. The ways of the heavens he assiduously studied.
So this guy Anshargal was, according to this text, very versatile in in astronomy.
The great circuit of Nibiru he studied, its length a shar to be he fixed.
Okay. So he changed the whole thing, marking it as a. See, basically, he's saying. He went and documented the whole orbit of Nibiru and called it a shar.
As 1 year of Nibiru was the measure, by it the royal reigns to be numbered and recorded. The shar, to the 10 portions he divided, 2 festivals were thereby he pronounced. When nearest to the sun's quarters, a festival of the warmth was celebrated. When to its far abode Nibiru was distanced, the festival of coolness was decreed. Replacing all olden festivals of tribes and nations to unify the people, the two were established. Laws of husband and wife, of sons and daughters, by degree he established. Customs from the first tribes he proclaimed for the whole land. From the war, females greatly outnumbered males. Decrees he made, one male to have more than one female for knowing.
So this guy said made it law for a man to be able to have more than one wife.
By law, one wife as official spouse to be chosen, first wife to be called. Okay. By law, the firstborn son was his father's successor.
Now you see where the first lady came from, huh?
By these laws, confusion soon came about. If the firstborn son, not by the firstborn wife, was born, and thereafter by the first wife a son was born, by law the legal heir becoming, who shall be the successor? The one by the count of Shar's firstborn? The one by the first wife born? The firstborn son? The legal heir? Who shall inherit? Who shall succeed? In the reign of Anshargal, Kishargal as first wife was pronounced. A half-sister of the king she was. In Anshargal's reign, concubines were again brought into the palace. By the concubines, sons and daughters to the king were born. A son by one was the first to be born. The son of a concubine was the firstborn.
So this guy's firstborn son was from a concubine, not from his first wife or first lady, Kishargal. So the confusion starts.
Thereafter Kishargal bore a son. The legal heir by law he was, the firstborn he was not. In the palace of Kishargal raised her voice in anger, shouting, "If by rules my son, by a first wife born, from succession shall be barred, let the double seed not be neglected."
So, she start raise hell in the palace now and say, "Oh, look, if my son is not going to be king, let's consider the fact that we're both from the same bloodline." Sheesh.
Though of different mothers, of one father the king and I are offspring. I am the king's half-sister. Of me the king is half-brother. Okay. By that my son the double seed of our father Anib possesses. Mm-hmm. Let henceforth the law of the seed, the law of espousal overpower. Let henceforth a son by a half-sister, whenever born, above all other sons rise to succession. And Shargal, contemplating, the law of the seed embraced with favor. Confusion of spouse and concubines, of marriage and divorce, it would be avoided. In their council, the royal counselors, the law of the seed for succession adopted.
So, they went and changed the law for this lady because she raising hell. They went and changed the whole law so that her son can inherit the throne. Her son can inherit the throne.
By the king's order, the scribes the decree recorded. Thus, the next king by the law of the seed for succession was proclaimed. To him, the royal name Anshar was granted. Fifth on the throne he was. Now, this is the account of the reign of Anshar and the kings who followed. When the law was changed, the other princes were contending. Words there were, rebellion there was not. As his spouse Anshar, a half-sister, chose, he made.
So basically everyone murmuring, but no one doing anything about it. But, people are disgruntled of the fact that the law was changed so that this guy can get the throne. It was changed just so that this guy can get the throne. So people murmuring, right?
Her first wife, by the name Kishar she was called. Thus was by this law the dynasty continued. In the reign of Anshar, the fields diminished their yields, fruits and grains lost abundance. From circuit to circuit, nearing the sun, heat grew stronger. In the faraway abode, coolness was more biting. In Agade, the throne city, the king, those of great understanding assembled. Learned savants, those of great knowledge to inquire were commanded.
So this guy command for all the intellectuals to gather in the palace to discuss this onset of, can you call it a drought? I don't know if you call it a drought, but the food is dwindling.
The land and the...
And then it's getting hotter in summer and colder in winter. So, I don't know, do you call that a drought?
Soil they examined, the lakes and streams they put to the test. It has happened before. Some gave an answer. Nibiru in the past, colder or warmer, has grown. A destiny it is, in the circuit of Nibiru embedded.
So they did the research and came back saying, hey, look, this is a part of Nibiru's cycle.
Others of knowledge, the circuit observing, Nibiru's destiny to blame did not consider. In the atmosphere, a breaching occurred that was their finding. Volcanoes, the atmosphere, forbear, less belching were spitting up.
So the atmosphere getting thinner because the volcano not spitting enough. So some scientists, some other researchers thinking, oh, it's a breach in the atmosphere, while others are saying, yo, look, it's no breach in no atmosphere. It's a part of Earth, of the planet's cycle.
Nibiru's air has thinner been made. The protective shield has been diminished.
Yep.
In the reign of Anshar and Kishar, pestilences made an appearance. Toil could them not overcome.
Okay.
Their son, Inshar, then the throne ascended. Of the dynasty, the sixth he was. Lordly master of the Shar, the name did signify. With great understanding he was born. With much learning he mastered much knowledge. To remedy the afflictions, ways he's thought. Of Nibiru heavenly circuit he made much study. In its loop of the sun's family, 5 members it embraced, planets of dazzling beauty. For cures to the afflictions, their atmospheres he caused to be examined.
So he instructing his learned, his intellectuals, to examine the other planets that they're encountering each time their planet goes around in its orbit, because they're trying to figure, hey, what's going on with our atmosphere? Let's look at those other atmospheres to see what's going on. Sounds like something we would do right now, right? Because we have the technology for that stuff, right?
To each he gave a name. Ancestral forefathers he honored. As heavenly couples he them considered. On and onto the twin-like planets he called the first 2 to be encountered. Beyond in Nibiru's circuit were Anshar and Kishar, in their size the largest.
What are the 2 largest planets in our solar system? I think, is it Jupiter and what? Neptune? Neptune, they say, is a gas giant, right? Or Saturn. Saturn is what? Saturn is a gas giant. Neptune is an ice giant. I don't know, man. This thing is confusing, but basically they're talking about those 4 major outer planets right here, and the 5th one you're gonna see that they call it something different, but they're talking about Pluto, and then the hammered bracelet is basically the asteroid belt.
As a messenger, Gaga, among the others, coursed sometimes first Nibiru to meet.
Gaga is the first one sometimes to meet Nibiru on its course. Pluto, that's Pluto.
5 in all were Nibiru's heavenly greeters as the sun it circled. Beyond, like a boundary, the hammered bracelet the sun encircled.
All right.
As a guardian of the heavens, forbidden region with havoc it protected.
Yup. That's definitely the asteroid belt.
Other children of the sun, 4 in number, from intrusion the bracelet shielded.
Uh-oh. How many planets are inside of the how many planets are inside of the asteroid belt? You got the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, then the asteroid belt. Then you got Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These are the 9 things that this thing is, bruh. You know what, let me just continue.
The atmospheres of the 5 greeters Inshar set out to study. In its repeating circuit, the 5 in Nibiru's loop carefully were examined. What atmospheres they possessed by observation and with celestial chariots intensely were examined. The findings were astounding, the discoveries confusing. From circuit to circuit, Nibiru's atmosphere more breaching suffered. In the councils of the learned, cures were avidly debated. Ways to bandage the wound were urgently considered. A new shield to embrace the planet was attempted. All that was thrust up back to the ground came down.
So they're attempting here to build themselves a new atmosphere, and everything they threw up there.
In the councils of the learned, the belching volcanoes were studied. The atmosphere, by belching volcanoes having been created, its wound by their diminished belching had come to be. Let with invention new belching be encouraged. Let volcanoes spew again. One savant's group was saying, how the feat to achieve, with what tools more belching to attain, none the king could inform.
So, learned is saying to this guy, look, let's build some new technology. You know, let's poke at these volcanoes a little bit and see if we can get some volcanic activity out of them.
In the reign of Inshar, the breach in the skies grew bigger. Rains were withheld, winds blew harder. In the palace there was distress. An accusation therein took hold.
An accusation therein took hold. So people are saying, oh, this is a curse. This, again, I'm thinking drought.
And his first wife, Inshar, a half-sister, did espouse, by the law of the seed abiding. Ninshar she was called, bare of the Shars the lady. A son she did not bear. By a concubine to Inshar a son was born. The firstborn son he was. By Ninshar, first wife and half-sister, a son was not brought forth. By the law of succession, the concubine's son the throne ascended. The 7th to reign he was. Duru was his royal name. In the dwelling place fashioned was its meaning. In the house of concubines, not in the palace, was he indeed conceived.
So them give this guy a name to remind him that, yo, look, bro, your mother breathing at the world. Bro, your mom got pregnant in the red light district. Yeah.
As his spouse, a maiden from his youth beloved, Duru chose by love, not by seed, a first wife he selected. Dauru was her royal name. She who is by my side was the meaning. In the royal court, confusion was rampant. Sons were not theirs, wives were not half-sisters. In the land, suffering was increasing. The fields forgot their abundance. Among the people, fertility was diminished. In the palace, fertility was absent. Neither son nor daughter was brought forth. Of An's seed, 7 were the rulers. Then of his seed the throne was dry. Dauru, a child at the palace gateway found. As a
All right. So the king's wife finds a child at the gateway of the palace, an abandoned child. Sounds a lot like the story of Moses. And she embraced him.
Son, she embraced him. Duru, in the end, as a son, him adopted. Legal heir, him decreed. Lama, meaning dryness, was his given name. In the palace, the princes were grumbling. In the council of counselors, there were complaints. In the end, Lama, the throne ascended. Though not of An's seed, he was the 8th to reign. In the councils of the learned, to heal the breach, there were 2 suggestions. One was to use a metal. Gold was its name. On Nibiru, it was greatly rare. Within the hammered bracelet, it was abundant. It was the only substance that to the finest powder could be ground, lofted high to heaven, suspended it could remain.
One was to use a metal. Gold was its name. On Nibiru, it was greatly rare. So basically, the planets in the astral, what this is saying is within the asteroid belt and beyond, according to their research, is a lot of gold. It's the only thing that they could make into a micro powder, toss it into their atmosphere. It's reflective enough to keep them cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and it stays there.
Thus, with replenishments, the breach it would heal, protection make better. Let celestial boats be built. Let a celestial fleet the gold to Nibiru bring over.
Now you see why I told you that the celestial boats or celestial ships or celestial chariots, celestial, heavenly, in the sky, right? Boat, chariot, something you travel in. So basically we call it today, we still call it ships, by the way. Spaceships. We still call them ships, bro.
Let weapons of terror be created was the other suggestion. Weapons that the ground shake loose, the mountains split asunder. With missiles, the volcanoes to attack, their dormancy to bestir, their belching to increase.
So the second suggestion was to poke at the volcanoes and with missiles and weapons of mass destruction and see if that would cause it to erupt.
The atmosphere to replenish, the breach to make disappear. For a decision, Lama was too feeble. What choice to make he knew. 1 circuit Nibiru completed, 2 shars Nibiru to count continued. In the fields, affliction was not diminished. By volcanic belching, the atmosphere was not repaired. A 3rd shar passed, a 4th was counted, gold was not obtained. In the land, strife was abundant. Food and water were not abundant. In the land, unity was gone. Accusations were abundant. In the
Yo, this part is the part that cracks me up. I can't wait for it.
royal court, savants were coming and going. Counselors were rushing in and rushing out. The king, to their words, paid no attention. Counsel from his spouse he only sought. Lahama was her name. If destiny it be, let us beseech the great creator of all. To the king she said.
So, bro. Bro. The planet, the entire planet, is literally at threat of being completely destroyed, right? And instead of this guy getting up and doing something, he's going to his wife for advice, bro? Seriously? And what's the solution? What's the solution his wife suggests? Let us pray. Let us pray. While the entire planet just whatever happens, right? Come on. See, that is why, bro, you have to be a leader. Don't be a follower. Be the leader. Be the one who sets the trend. Be the one who says how things goes. Don't be the man who... Don't be that guy. Just don't be that guy. Easy. Don't be that guy.
Beseeching net actings provide the only hope. In the royal court, the princes were astir. At the king, accusations were directed. Foolishly, unreasoning, greater calamities instead of cure he brought forth. From the olden storehouses weapons were retrieved. Of rebellion there was much speaking. A prince in the royal palace was the first to take up arms. By words of promise the other princes he agitated. Alelu was his name.
Funny enough, think about it, bro. As a man, we're in this thing together. The entire planet going to shambles. And you as the leader, instead of making some decisive moves to try and remedy the problem, you don't listen to anybody. You only listen to your woman. I mean, I would take up arms too. Because a family cannot be run like that. Let alone a community. Extend that out to a country. Now think about that globally. Jeez. Bruh. Be the leader. Be the leader.
Let Lama be the king no more, he shouted. Let decision supplant hesitation. Come, let us unnerve the king in his dwelling. Let him the throne abandon. The princes to his words gave heed. The gate of the palace they rushed.
So Alalu started a coup. And funny enough, Allah, really close, right?
To the throne room, its entrance restricted, like onrushing waters they went. To the tower of the palace the king escaped. Alelu was him pursuing. In the tower there was a struggle. Lama fell down to his death. Lama is no more, Alelu shouted. The king is no more, with glee he announced. To the throne room Alelu rushed. On the throne he himself seated. Without right or counsel, a king he himself pronounced.
So, Alalu usurped the king.
In the land unity was lost. Some by the death of Lama rejoiced, others by Alelu's deed were saddened. Now this is the account of the kingship of Alelu and of the going to earth. In the land unity was lost. About the kingship many were aggrieved. In the palace princes were agitated. In the council, counselors were distraught.
Of course. I mean, come on. You started a whole coup. I mean, come on. Who wouldn't be distraught? Who wouldn't be grumbling? Who wouldn't be aggrieved?
From father to son, succession from on the throne continued. Even Lama, the eighth, by adoption a son was proclaimed. Who was Alelu? Was he a legal heir? Was he firstborn? By what right did he usurp? Was he not a kingslayer? Before the seven who judge Alelu was summoned, his fate to consider. Before the seven who judge, Alelu spread his pleas.
Before the seven who judge, right? Sounds a lot like a jury to me.
Though neither legal heir nor a son firstborn, of royal seed indeed he was. Of Unshargal am I descended, before the judges he claimed. By a concubine my ancestor was to him born. Alam was his name. By the count of Shars, Alam was the firstborn. The throne to him belonged. By convincing the queen his rights put aside. A law of the seed from naught she created.
See? Bruh. Remember earlier in the story when the king went and changed the whole law just so that his first wife's son could inherit the throne? Ta-da!
For her son the kingship attained. Elam of kingship she deprived, to her son instead it was granted. By descent of Elam's generations am I continued. The seed of Anshargal is within me. The seven who judged to Alelu's words gave heed. To the council of counselors they passed the matter, truth or falsehood to ascertain. The royal annals from the house of records were brought forth. With much care they were read. On and onto the first royal couple were, 3 sons and no daughters to them were born. The firstborn was Enki. He died on the throne. He had no offspring. The middle son, in his stead the throne ascended, and Nib was his name. Anshargal was his firstborn, the throne he ascended. After him on the throne, kingship by the firstborn did not continue. The law of succession by the law of the seed was supplanted. A concubine's son was the firstborn. By the law of the seed of kingship he was deprived. The kingship instead of Kishargal's son was granted. Her being a half-sister of the king was the reason.
All right. See? Because they all changed the law and all that. All right. Now he came back.
Of the concubine's son, the firstborn, the annals made no record. Of him I am descended, Alelu to the counselors cried out. By the law of succession to him kingship belonged. By the law of succession to kingship am I now entitled. With hesitation the counselors of Alelu an oath of truth demanded. Alelu swore the oath of life or death, as king the council him considered.
Bruh. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth? Think about it, bro. Like, it's the same exact processes being described. The same thing.
They summoned the elders, they summoned the princes. Before them the decision was pronounced. From among the princes, a young prince stepped forward. About the kingship words he wished to say. Succession must be reconsidered to the assembly, he said. Though neither firstborn, nor by the queen a son, of pure seed am I descended. The essence of On in me is preserved, by no concubine diluted. The counselors heard the words with amazement. The young prince to step closer they summoned.
So now see this, the law of the seed coming back. All right.
They asked for his name. It is Anu, after my forefather On am I named. They inquired about his generations. Of On's 3 sons he them reminded. Enki was the firstborn, without son or daughter he died. Anib was the middle son, instead of Enki the throne he ascended. Anib, the daughter of his younger brother, took to be wife. From them onward the succession in the annals recorded. Who was that younger brother? A son of On and Antu, one of purest seed. The counselors with wonderment looked at each other. Nibiru was his name. Anu to them announced he was my great ancestor. His spouse, Nibiru, was half-sister. Her son was firstborn. Anama was his name. His wife was a half-sister. By laws of seed and succession, a son she bore him. Of pure descent the generations continued. By law and by seed perfect. Anu, after our forefather On, did my parents name me. From the throneship we were removed. From On's pure seed we were not removed. Let Anu be king, many counselors shouted. Let Alelu be removed. Others, caution did counsel. Let strife be prevented. Let unity prevail. They called in Alelu, the discovered findings to be told. To the prince Anu, Alelu his arm in embrace offered. To Anu he thus said, though by different offsprings of one ancestor we are both descended, let us live in peace, together Nibiru to abundance return.
All right. So this guy's saying, yo, look, we are one blood. We're of the same descent. So how about some love and unity? I mean, we have a whole planet to fix.
Let me keep the throne. Let you keep the succession. To the council's words he directed, "Let Anu crown prince be. Let him be my successor. Let his son my daughter espouse. Let succession be united." Anu bowed before the council. To the assembly he thus declared, "Alelu's cupbearer I shall be, his successor in waiting. A son of mine, a daughter of his, as bride shall choose." That was the council's decision. In the royal annals it was inscribed. In this manner Alelu on the throne remained seated. He summoned the sages, savants, and commanders he consulted. For deciding he gained much knowledge. Let celestial boats be constructed, he decided. To seek the gold in the hammered bracelet, he decided. By the hammered bracelets the boats were crushed. None of them returned.
So then on their first attempt to try and retrieve gold from the asteroid belt, everything got destroyed. Nobody returned.
Let with weapons of terror the bowels of Nibiru be cut open. Let volcanoes again erupt, he then commanded. With weapons of terror skyborne chariots were armed. With terror missiles from the skies where volcanoes struck. The mountains swayed, the valleys shuddered as great brilliances with thunder exploded.
Weapons of mass destruction, right?
In the land there was much rejoicing. Of abundance there were expectations. In the palace Anu was for Alelu the cupbearer. He would bow at Alelu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alelu's hand. Alelu was the king. Anu as a servant by him was treated. In the land rejoicing receded. Rains were withheld. Winds blew harder. The belching by volcanoes did not increase. The breach in the atmosphere did not heal. In the heavens, Nibiru, its circuit kept coursing. From circuit to circuit, heat and cold grew harder to suffer. The people of Nibiru ceased to revere their king. Instead of relief, misery he caused. Alelu on the throne remained seated. The strong and wise Anu, foremost among the princes, was standing before him. He would bow to Alelu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alelu's hand. For 9 counted periods, Alelu was king on Nibiru. In the 9th Shar, Anu gave battle to Alelu.
Live by the sword, you die by it, right? Alright, so Anu about to challenge Alalu for the throne. So let's see.
To hand combat with bodies naked, Alelu he challenged.
Uh-oh. We got some sumo wrestling. Uh-oh. In hand-to-hand combat with bodies naked, Alalu challenged. And Anu challenged Alalu.
Let the winner be king, Anu said. They grappled with each other in the public square. Doorposts trembled and walls shook. Alelu bent his knee to the ground. He fell on his chest. Alelu in combat was defeated. By acclaim, Anu was hailed as king. Anu to the palace was escorted. Alelu to the palace did not return. From the crowds he stealthily escaped. Of doing like Lama, he was fearful.
So, this guy want to avoid the disgrace. Don't want to die. So, he basically took himself away from... Bruh.
Unbeknownst to others, to the place of the celestial chariots he hurriedly went. Into a missile-throwing chariot Alelu climbed. Its hatch behind him he closed. The 4-part chamber he entered. The commander's seat he occupied. That which shows the way he lit up.
That which shows the way he lit up. That which shows the way sounds a lot like a navigator screen. Pretty much like the GPS in your car when you see that when you turn on your car and everything light up, right?